Welcome everybody to MogTalk episode 196. Today is February 2nd, or no, February 1st, 2020. And if you guys have not watched MogTalk before, it's a show based around a Final Fantasy 14 community discussing everything from Savage Raiding to Chocobo Racing. And we have three wonderful guests on today to talk about our wonderful topic. Before we get started, I want you guys to know who we have on. I'm going to start with the guest who hasn't been on the show yet before and who got, kind of kicked off one of the shows we were planning to have him for because of one of the guests that we have on, Sfia. Oryza, could you tell everybody who you are and kind of what you do?
Yeah, hey guys, I'm Oryza actually.
Oh, Oryza, sorry, I'm an idiot.
I don't know. People call me everything. Like usually people call me Ori, but
Ori is what
yeah,
it's gonna happen.
I've started playing Final Fantasy in creator and been raiding since then. I stream. I occasionally make YouTube videos about Final Fantasy, and that's about it. Yeah, I raid, and that's it.
Pretty good. All right, and Sfia, if you don't mind going.
I'm Sfia. I'm a cast domain world progression player. Raid with a team from Radiance on Gilgamesh.
Okay, you're a little low. I think it's because you're like facing away from the mic a bit.
Am I?
Yeah,
okay.
but
I can talk
however you want
directly like this.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Okay, and Ethys.
Hi, I'm Ethys. No one else wanted to come on today, so it's me.
He's here.
Me. I'm a law boy, and I raid too, but I'm pretty casual, so I can offer, I guess, the other side, whatever that is.
The other side, the casual pleb side, right?
Okay, that's pleb's a strong word.
Is it?
I don't super love that, but yeah, sure.
Okay.
That's right.
So everybody, today our topic is, we have two topics. There's a couple things I've been talking about recently that I was interested to dive in a little bit further. One was about kind of playing the game and getting, and paying monthly for a game and kind of expectations we might have if we're playing games like that. And we haven't really thought about that because it's been such a thing that's been normalized in a way for a lot of us that play MMOs, but free to play is an option as well. And so it's kind of strange to talk about because, hey, we're giving money to them every month. What are we giving them money for? I figured it's worth talking about. The other part was there's a lot of discussion recently on the validity of people who do meta jobs and how that actually applies to not just in-game raiders, but people who play the game casually. They kind of have a different perspective on all that. And it's easy to, in both of these conversations, just say, oh, I'll just do whatever makes you happy. But that's a boring conversation. So maybe we won't say that as our answer today. But to start us off, and
Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers. The entire show, we're all just going to say, just do whatever you like. If you're happy and content, just do it. No. All right, no. So let's start this off with the first topic, of course, which is the value of an MMO subscription. And the reason I think this is worth talking about is because when you think about it, for the last, I don't know, how many years have I been playing? I've been playing since 2014 at least. So that would be 6 years, 12 months. And I don't have a 1.0 grandfather cheaper subscription. So I've paid at least $600, $700 to the game over the lifespan.
Don't say that. I don't want to.
I hadn't even thought of it that way. That's
I don't want to do that. Shut up.
Yeah. So I mean, it's every month. It adds up. It's something that we do for a lot of things. For like Netflix, I may not watch Netflix for months, but I'm still subscribed and giving them money every single month too, and that feels kind of weird to me.
Because you're lazy.
I'm too lazy to be entertained. You're right.
No, you're too lazy to cancel it and then re-up it again when you want to use it.
Right. No, and that's kind of a conversation I wanted to have too. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about it this way. So we pay money every single month to play Final Fantasy 14. What's the conversation there? Like, what are we expecting from paying every month? Are we just paying for the servers to exist?
Final Fantasy 7 remake. I'm pretty sure.
Final Fantasy.
I mean, if you want to speak literally, what we're paying for, our subscription, it goes to Square Enix. Mm-hmm. And it is paid for projects like Final Fantasy 15, Kingdom Hearts 3, Final Fantasy 7 Remake. Before A Realm Reborn, Square Enix was in a little bit of trouble with a lot of these projects and, having a steady income stream. What you pay your sub, it doesn't go to Yoshida, it doesn't go to the development team, it goes to Square Enix. Square Enix allocates Yoshida and his team a budget, which they revise. As far as I understand, they revise basically every expansion, and that's what they use to make the game. Okay. So no, your subscription does not go into maintaining the servers. What goes into maintaining servers and building new data centers and basically anything that's accessory to Yoshida's budget is actually the Mog Station.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's the one revenue source that feeds back into the dev team is the Mog Station.
So basically, if we are paying our subscription every single month, we're supporting Square Enix as a company, and we say, hey, this product that you're making is good enough for us to support your company to make whatever it makes. And then if we're going into Mog Station and we're buying 50 million, race changes or level ups for our jobs and everything else, that's money that goes to the dev team for Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah, it goes to stuff like building new data centers. The new NA and European data centers are the two sort of big projects that have been made off of the Mog Station income.
Mm-hmm. It almost feels like, taking it in that perspective, we're looking at Square Enix and everyone else as like they're a streamer of sorts, right? We're like, we like what you're doing. Here's some money to allocate towards, a product that you're providing for us. No?
Okay. I mean, interesting concept. I would think of it more as like you were suggesting, like a streaming service, like, Netflix or Hulu or something like that, right? Like that's more how that payment works, right?
Okay. Sfia, do you have any thoughts on kind of your monthly subscription and everything else?
I mean, specifically, no. I didn't actually know that it was divvied up that way, and that the subscription went to Square and the Mog Station directly fed back into Final Fantasy 14 itself. But it's not too surprising, realistically.
Yeah,
there's more to go into a lot later about it. Yeah.
Don't take my word for it. I've had conversations with some Square Enix employees that have explained it to me that way. I don't know, it might have changed in the last couple of years. But as far as I understand,
this could be just bullshitting us right now.
I'm not bullshitting, but yeah, from conversations I've had with Square Enix employees and the way that I've kind of had that laid out for me, that's how it operates.
Okay. Oryza, do you have any thoughts on that?
I've actually never heard that before either, but it makes sense because if you think about like Blizzard, right, it's like you don't expect all the Overwatch loot box money to only sit in Overwatch and like everything to be siloed, because that just like doesn't make sense for the company to do that. So like I don't know about the exact split, but I didn't expect all of the subscription money to, well, it's either all like Final Fantasy 14 makes so much money that they use it to fund other stuff, or like God forbid it's the other way around where it doesn't make enough money and then they fund it with other things. But I don't think that's the case. So yeah.
So
it seems that as 14 has become more successful, the budget allocation to Yoshida's team has gotten larger. I believe that the budget for Stormblood was like roughly sort of double or triple what the budget for Heaven's Ward was. So it's kind of more like that. The more subscribers they pull in, yeah, that money goes to Square Enix, but it means next time they come around to another expansion and they're negotiating the budget, they're sort of, they get more money thrown at them to make the content they want to make.
A really good way to just look at something that we can visually see about that is look at the advertising for Heaven's Ward, then Stormblood, and then Shadowbringers.
Sure.
And the marketing for it. That is just a really good indicator of just how much they're putting back into the game, because that is not cheap.
Yeah, getting Spider-Man to advertise for Final Fantasy 14 was pretty good, right? Exactly. Wasn't expecting that. And I think Shadowbringers, they've only been like succeeding more and more every single expansion too, right? Yeah, I think so. This has been the most successful one.
The launch of Shadowbringers was the highest number of concurrent subs.
Yeah.
At any point in time in the game's history.
Okay. But
it's definitely growing.
If we were to kind of step back for a second and we're going to say, all right, well, that's all good for them. But as we're paying every single month, what should we, as people who give money to an MMO, is there anything we should be expecting? Like, hey, here goes this money. Oh, well, I get the login and craft, and okay, so that makes me happy. So that's what I'm paying, $15 a month, so I could log in and craft and make other people happy and be done with it. Or is it something that's like, hey, you should get this amount of time out of your money every single month? What would you guys value it as?
So that's typically how I actually approach games that I'll buy. Will I get X amount of hour value out of this that I'll enjoy? And then you compare it from there. The difference is though that you have an upfront payment with the game itself here. So like you get your $60,
right,
and then you buy the game. So what I consider that to be is typically these days you want to get like 80 to 100 hours out of a game, and you get that essentially just from the base game and the first month that you get. But every $15 you pay a month or whatever it is at the moment, I haven't even looked.
It's like $12.99 or something, I think. I don't actually know. I should look at my... Go ahead, sorry.
To get sort of a similar ratio of value to money, right? That's at least how I think of it. So the base game you're expecting to get a value out of, and you're expecting to get value out of every single month that you're paying extra. So obviously not every month you're going to be getting a ton of content added in because of the way that they structure the patch cycles. But I'd assume that everyone has the expectation that their money is going towards developing this game further regularly, right? And it is.
Yeah, it does come back in some way. And I mean, it definitely comes back if you go in and you buy new mounts and stuff from MogStation.
Well, I was meaning more along the lines of, if we were still paying $15 a month, I'd expect more than just servers staying up and the game staying exactly the same. That's what I'd expect from nothing more than in like a
free to play
payment with no monthly sub.
Yeah. Okay.
Buy to play as opposed to pay to play.
Yeah. If you're paying more money, you're expecting more content, right? That sort of stands to reason, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, if we look at the current patch cycle of every 3 months, we're spending like $40 a patch, right?
Yeah.
So are we happy with the patch that comes out and we spend $40 on it, or are we not?
Well, I mean, most people are. Plenty of people aren't.
Okay.
Well, so when at what point do you ask for a refund on a game? There's kind of been an issue at the moment with like
if they reforge
Warcraft 3 reforged. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So why is it that people ask for a refund and they feel that they're justified to ask for a refund?
If you go in there and your expectations are not met with what you thought you were buying.
Okay.
Right.
Is it just about expectations though? Because you can have like unreasonable expectations about a game that aren't met, and not be justified in expecting your money back or something like that, right?
It's true. It's
true. The way I see it is that we know exactly what we're getting with that sub. It is so reliable and so predictable, the patch cycles. We know exactly what we're getting. We know exactly when we're getting it. And we know exactly like what increments of time to expect, like between those content patches, and we know more or less like what kind of content each of those patches is going to have. And the fact that we have that transparency with our subscription means that if you're opting into it, then you're making the decision that that's what that $15 is worth to you.
Okay. So we should know what we're sold on, right? We're buying it and we're saying, hey, this is what we should expect. We can log into the game, and they do seasonal events. They do a couple other things. I mean, it's something that's not really hidden. They're not just saying, hey, give us $15 and they don't do anything. So I guess that's a good point.
Yeah, if they did that, if they suddenly changed their patch cycle and didn't release a patch for, like 9 months or something, then people would be justified in saying, why am I paying $15? This is ridiculous. But people that would say at the moment, hypothetically, I was expecting more from this patch, or, I shouldn't have to pay this sub or whatever because I'm only getting this and this and this. It's like it just being willfully ignorant at this point, right?
It's true. So let's do this. I kind of want to have, I want your perspectives on, hey, for me, I'm paying because I get to, I want to be able to log in at will. And I'm paying because but previously in this last PvP season, I was PvPing. I was logging in and playing and having those matches. And I wanted to have that ability to log in and do those matches. I don't do a whole lot. Like, I don't go out and craft. I don't do a whole bunch of side quests. I'm not really a deep, I don't know how to say that properly. I don't try to experience every single thing in the game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like, if I don't feel like I'm interested enough to do it, I don't do it. I just log in because I want to log in, and at that time, PvP, when raids come out, I'll raid. But Oryza, I'll start with you. So you're paying every single month. Why are you still paying a subscription right now?
I paid a raid, and I pay
Okay.
to do things to prepare for the next raid, and that's it. Pretty much.
Okay.
Like,
Are you always doing that? Like, do you finish one raid, tier 1 ultimate, and then immediately start preparing for the next one?
I finish and then I raid log for a while, and then
Okay.
like I'll start preparing like a month out, depending on what we need.
Okay. So raid log, are you raiding on ults as well? Or are you just
I log in once a week. but like the thing is, like, Savage is like, if preparing for the next ultimate means like you have to get your weekly Savage gear to get geared up to do the ultimate. Like, you can't just not subscribe, or else you're
Of
not going to
course.
meet the minimum item level. So like
Mhm.
they kind of force your hand into subscribing. But at the same time, for me, it's like, if I could just pay, like, every patch you pay is like $40, you said, right? So if I could pay like $40 every patch to just do the progression and then not have to do anything in between, I would still do that. So like, it, like, whether I have to pay it separate per month or not, like, it's not really that different. So
Okay.
I mean, it's just like it's actually like I want less time that I have to be playing this game. It's kind of ironic, right? But it's like, I don't want to have to log in every week to kill Eden Prime over and over again. It's not like I don't want to do this, but like I have to. So I'd rather be
It's
like,
such a weird thing, right? That's
an interesting concept, isn't it?
Yeah, you
A
rate it
lot of
because
people do that too. A lot of people.
yeah, raid logging is very popular. I mean, to be
Yeah.
honest with you, a lot of people they want to raid, they want to be a part of a group, and they want to hang out with their friends and kill stuff, and that's what they pay for their subscription every single month for. And I mean, once they, while they're clearing it, they could be playing every single day or 3 times a week or something else. But then once they clear that boss, they're just once a week they're getting the loot and logging out.
Sure, but what Oryza is touching on is this sense of obligation, right?
Yeah.
The fact that at a point it's not fun. At a point you're thinking about, well, I want to do future content, and therefore I have to keep paying my sub now, and I have to keep logging in now and pay it so that I'm prepared for that. Is that like a common frustration in the hardcore raiding community? This fact that you feel obligated to keep subbing when you don't want to play?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Is there a lot of like friction about that?
Yeah, but people kind of understand that it's a necessary evil, that this is just the way the game is designed now and it has to go that way. So I'm the complete opposite of the spectrum to Oryza here. Oryza, sorry. I do literally everything.
That's okay.
I do all the content in the game, and a lot of people complaining from the exact like perspective of what Oryza just said. He's not complaining about the situation, he's just explaining what he likes particularly. But a lot of people's complaints are there isn't enough content in the game. And as someone who tries to do everything, that is absolutely untrue. There just isn't enough content. There just isn't enough content for you.
Yeah.
Because there is so much shit in this game. It's unfathomable. If you want to do everything, you probably can't.
Yeah. I mean, you could. There are people who go out there and they do everything. A lot of people who stream, they say, I'm going to do every single thing because it's content to stream, basically, right?
But you still cannot. Like there are people who have been farming achievements since the game's inception, and they cannot get everything.
You're right.
It's so much time investment.
They can't get out there and do feast seasons every time it comes out. They just can't.
Well, they can, but it's just like,
well, the amount of time you put into that, just it wouldn't balance out. Exactly. And like you do a lot of blue mage stuff, actually, Sfia, right?
Yeah, every new piece of new content that comes out, I'll do it. But just because of people logging in for one specific thing, and then when they talk about it, it gives this really sort of false representation of what's actually in the game, because people say, oh, there's nothing in this game. The raids are only every 3.5 months if you're counting Savage and Ultimate. You're just in the waiting room for the next piece of raid content. But that's only specific to raiding.
Yeah. Yeah.
But lots of types of players are in waiting rooms. Like there are people that are only interested in the story. There are people that are only interested in raids. People that there's like 2 or 3 people that are only really interested in PvP.
Motherfucker.
But one of the strengths of Final Fantasy XIV is that there is so many different kinds of content that appeal to so many different kinds of player, and it kind of centralizes all these different sort of micro communities. But anyone that only like fits into one of those groups does spend a lot of time in this waiting room. Now, at least for me, I do feel this sense of obligation. Like when I finished with like a raid tier or something, and I'm like, oh shit, what now? I'm subbed to this game. Oh, I got to make content. Oh, what's happening? What can I do?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll like start something. Like I'll start Blue Mage, or I'll start Eureka, or I'll start like leveling a crafter or something out of this sense of obligation. And then I'll find that I actually end up really enjoying it, and I'll get like way into that and just sort of like, smash the shit out of that. And then it'll be like, all right, what's the next thing? So I think that it's interesting that, like I say, that sense of obligation can sort of make you feel compelled to try, like step out of your sort of comfort zone with your content and try different kinds of content, and then get invested in those different kinds of content. That if it wasn't a subscription-based game, you'd just be like, no, whatever, I'll just come back when, my thing is updated again, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if it wasn't subscription-based right now and you didn't have to log in every single week to get all your gear, like they automatically unlocked raids and you could do it every single week no matter what, and you could just blast through it and get it all done, people would log out and servers would die, right? They would just not be active, because that, when thinking about it, the most active thing in the game is raiding, I would think, right?
I honestly I have no idea.
Okay.
Is it? Probably not. I
Really?
mean, yeah, I think it's not a majority of people that kind of raid weekly.
Okay.
I think the largest group of people are just kind of like doing social casual content, right?
And Limna just kind of hanging out? Oh,
yeah, I think most people are just like hanging around at their FC house around the Aetherite, just kind of shooting the shit.
So, okay, the majority of people in the game log in to kind of sit and talk to other people and have a character they can move around and interact with. Is that it?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I'd say probably the biggest demographic are people who buy the game to play the story.
Yeah.
Okay.
At least, especially in Shadowbringers, after it was so well received and publicized about how good the story was.
That's actually, in my opinion, there's actually an issue with that. Because when we think about Shadowbringers and when it was released, there was so much story, right? So many people loved it. They went in through and they powered through it, and they're like, this is great, I want more. And they sit there for 3 months. Then they're like, oh, okay, well, here's the next piece, and it's an hour of story. Then it's over. There's no replayability to it. You're just done with that story. And then 3 months later, I get another hour. That's rough.
But again, there's the sense of obligation, and there's so many people that have been brought into the game by the story that have been like, oh shit, I'm done with the story. What else is there to do now? And they've gotten invested in something else. Like that's how I started raiding. Like I got to endgame in A Realm Reborn, and I was like, oh, what now? And some people in my MC were like, oh, come raid with us. I was like, all right, cool. And I've raided every tier since the beginning of ARR. Like I think most people ends up getting their claws into something else.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just the story is like the gateway drug, particularly for Shadow.
Okay. All right. So that's what brings us all together.
Yeah. It's a story-based MMO. Okay. It's a Final Fantasy game, right? Those are essentially the big draw cards of this game. One, that it's Final Fantasy. Two, that it's a story-driven MMO, and then people stay there for that. One of the problems is that when they get to the end, they don't have the, I guess, I don't know the word for it, but what Ethys was talking about, how he had to actively go out and try something new and then find out, oh, this is actually fun.
Mm-hmm.
People who don't do that got to realize that why would they intentionally put content in the game that they don't think is fun?
No, of
People say,
course.
"Oh, Eureka!" But everything is made with the intention of being good in here. With the intention of being good. So sometimes they'll miss the
Absolutely.
bar or they'll miss the mark, but odds are you'll like something if you actually get invested in it.
So I
And
guess
that goes for virtually everything in the game.
yeah.
And if it wasn't sub-based, a lot of people would just like peace out rather than doing that, right?
Yeah, I mean, the sub makes you feel obligated to log in and do something that you're getting value out of your money. I guess that does make sense.
Well, don't a lot of players who only play for story only sub on the patch and then they just like don't sub in between? And they just
A
don't
lot of
feel
people only
obligated to
play
do
for
other stuff.
story. They will sub at the start of the expansion and the end of the expansion.
Yeah.
Now, I'll give you my wife's perspective on this, is that she got into Shadowbringers, she enjoyed the story and everything else, and then afterwards she's like, I don't want to raid, I kind of don't want to do any of this other stuff, I'd rather go play something else, right? I'd rather go do something with my other time. And then afterwards, she didn't log back in when the patch came up and there's more story, because she was like, I'm kind of removed from it now, it's been too long.
Was she subbing though?
Absolutely.
See,
I pay for her sub.
people are so lazy, and this is why like subscription models make so much fucking money across so many platforms now, right? Because people do it. People set up like an auto recurring Netflix subscription, and they go 6 months without watching any shows on Netflix, and they're just too fucking lazy to cancel it.
I mean, so that's a good point. I mean, I've really been thinking about that recently. A financially responsible thing to do is like, here's all my subscriptions, and once you subscribe, just automatically cancel it afterwards. Just say, I've canceled. You'll keep that subscription for that month, right? And then when the time's up, it's over. I mean, that's what I do with HBO. I go on Amazon and I say, hey, I want to get HBO, and then I cancel it automatically afterwards, and then I have a month of HBO and watching whatever show I want to.
Sure.
And so that's the thing. And the thing is, though, if I want to, I'm like, oh man, I don't have a subscription anymore, I can't watch what I want. Then you just resubscribe.
Sub takes 5 minutes.
So should we all be financially responsible, and as soon as we sub
Of
for something,
course.
cancel it automatically and then just not let it
Are
renew?
you saying should we take responsibility for the money that we spend rather than expecting the people that receive that money to take? Of course we should.
Okay.
Square Enix isn't responsible for your sub, you are.
But
Final
what?
Fantasy is better than others too, because you can just do a month by month basis. I've never done a recurring sub for Final Fantasy. Like when I bought Netflix, they're like automatically sign me up for the recurring thing. Final Fantasy doesn't do that. They're actually like better.
No, I'm recurring every month. I'm recurring for Final Fantasy.
It's a
You
choice
don't have
you
to
get
be.
them. Yeah.
So here's the other thing, though. But if you subscribe for 3 months, it's cheaper. You subscribe for 6 months, it's cheaper. For a year, overall, it's cheaper. So,
And that's when the importance of like predictability and transparency comes in, is that when you make that purchase, like we know, because it's been happening like clockwork since the beginning of ARR. We know exactly what we're going to get in a 3 month, 6 month, or 12-month window. So that's still on you, right?
it is. You're right. So I guess one thing we could come from this subject that we should probably tell everybody to do is don't have recurring subs to any subscription ever.
No.
No?
No.
That's not the
Yeah,
thing we're
don't.
saying?
No.
Treat
not
every
unless-
month like a buy-to-play game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess there's a little bit more. I guess we could talk about this a bit. Do you guys think that we should ever really... Final Fantasy will hit a point... I mean, Final Fantasy 11 never did, but Final Fantasy 14 will ever hit a point where it's like just free to play, and you just kind of come in and they switch to this model, and you just go into the store and buy things that you might expect should come to you if you were playing the game.
Please
I
no.
hope not. I really hope not.
Please no.
I think the only time in which that ever happens is when development stops on the game and they say, this is the finished product. Now we're not developing the story. We're not adding any more content. You can buy the game, play the servers until we take them down.
Okay. Yeah.
That would be the only time that I can see it being a thing, because the sub is what really keeps it alive.
Absolutely.
And growing. Also, free-to-play models encourage different types of attitudes and behaviors, and we don't want that.
Has there ever been a free-to-play model MMO like that we expect an MMO RPG that has succeeded?
I
Maple
mean,
Story.
Elder Scrolls Online does pretty good. I'm pretty sure that's free to play
Is it?
at the moment. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. It's generally though that like when something comes out the gate as a subscription model and they have to change their model at some point down the track, it's normally indicative of them kind of being on life support mode, right?
Mm-hmm. And so, is Final Fantasy XI not on life support mode? Does it just?
Speaking of life support mode,
Well,
Sure.
that's tough, isn't it?
Yeah. Go ahead, Sfia.
at 1.0, Final Fantasy did go to free to play for a while.
Yeah.
When Yoshida took over, he took away the subscription because he said the game currently isn't in a state where we can justify having you pay for it monthly. So people who were already subbed and had, I think, like 3 or 6 months before he made this announcement, then got their subs continued for free. So essentially it did for a time exist in a free-to-play state. So it would take going back to like 1.0 condition of the game for them to go back on that.
Well, it was also a really good idea because of the way they ended the expansion. They want as many people able to play and see that whole ending happen too, right? You know, being a part of the world being destroyed is actually kind of cool, and they don't want people to be not able to log in and see it because they
he was already thinking about marketing for A Realm Reborn at that point and how to kind of hype that up as much as possible. We should be clear here. We're talking about games that are not necessarily like free, but games that do not have like monthly.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry.
Games that are monetized in another way, either by just like buying the game and having it and being able to play as much as you want, like Guild Wars 2 or like Elder Scrolls Online. Or games that have a cash shop, right?
Yeah. And I think Final Fantasy XIV's model, I mean, when I was having this conversation before, it turned into kind of nasty because I don't know how to word things on the internet. And so, you know, I will say, okay, you're playing a game. What's owed to you? And they're like, owed? What kind of pretentious piece of shit would say they're owed anything? You pay and that's all. You give them money and you're not owed anything. You know? And I was like,
it's a transaction.
Well, I mean, that's not true. Of course,
you give money in expect of goods and services. That's exactly what purchasing anything is.
Right. And people were pretty upset about it. And I feel like, man, I suck. I don't know what it is with the internet and just talking and what it really is. But I can easily just cause a shitstorm by saying something but using the wrong word, using a word that's just slightly wrong for the context, I guess. I don't know. It's rough.
You're owed basically to have a reasonable expectation met of what was advertised, right? Mm-hmm. And this is where the boon of Final Fantasy XIV's consistency is so important, because in a lot of like subscription based models, if you go 12 months with a content drought and players have no idea like what's coming, when it's coming, whether it's going to be any good, that's when you can sort of expect people to start like looking at a subscription-based system and being like, oh, I don't know if this is working, right? Mm-hmm. But the fact that Yoshida's team is so transparent and the fact that it is so reliable, we know exactly what we're getting, that it is like clockwork, that's never going to be a problem, is it? Where you're going to pay for a month subscription and think, well, I don't know what I'm going to get. Like I'm just rolling the dice here. Like, oh, I hope I get a patch, you know, it's never going to happen. Right.
Yeah.
So provided that transaction proceeds in that manner, then the owing is fulfilled. Right.
Mm-hmm. I would say so. I mean, and I want to make sure this is clear, too, having this whole conversation. I don't want to seem like I'm complaining. I'm perfectly content with my choice to constantly give them money every single month. I mean, I've got enough out of Final Fantasy XIV that's not really game. That's not gameplay. That has been way more valuable to me than anything they could put in the game. For all of us, we've had experience streaming at some level or capacity. I mean, Final Fantasy XIV provides a lot of community and a lot of people and opportunities that I wouldn't have had if I didn't subscribe every single month and play the game. So
I mean, it's tax deductible for me, so
it's true. So I don't know. It's hard. It's always hard to have these kind of conversations too, and if people tell me this all the time, man, and this is kind of a side conversation, but they're always like, man, you always get streamers on, or you always get people who, you know, are known in some capacity. You need to bring on the average Joe, just the you know, the guy who just logs in and plays the game and no one knows anything else. I'm like, man,
That guy's boring.
that guy. That guy, that's such, and I'll be honest, when MogTalk first started,
I'm joking, you're not boring. I'm kidding, everyone.
But the thing is, when you bring those type of people on the show, I have done that when MogTalk was in the first few days. I'm like, God, I need somebody to come on the show. I don't know anyone. Hey, we rated before. Are you want to talk on a show? And I've done that, and it works out. And the thing is, not everybody is able to have a conversation. That's really what it is. They are. They can't.
You're just finding like a more polite way of like putting a really serious nail into my very not serious joke.
I mean, I don't know. It's you shouldn't have expectation of someone who logs into the game and just wants to play Final Fantasy 14. If they express, hey, I would like to talk about stuff, that's good, because maybe they want to have a conversation and everything else. And yeah, maybe people might not know them, but maybe they are interesting and worth talking to. Who knows? But at the same time, it does skew our perspective a little bit, because we all get more than just the average player, right, out of Final Fantasy 14. So this whole conversation is skewed in that perspective, but I feel like I do understand, because same thing like you were saying with Netflix. I have a Netflix subscription that I should cancel and only pay when I want to watch something on Netflix. We're able to relate to these concepts pretty well.
You make a fair point there. Like we were just talking before, like, hey, what is the average player doing right now? And like, I don't know. I have no idea what the average player does.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and it has to be fair. You know, we have to realize this stuff. We aren't representatives of the person who just logs in and like they play an MMO and done. And I have been that person. I mean, it's not like I haven't been that person before, but currently in Final Fantasy 14, I'm not entirely that person. And so if I had to think about it and talk about it a little bit, a lot of people in chat maybe are those people, but even the people in chat are a little bit more invested than most people.
No, the people in chat also have no idea who the average player is. The average player does not watch MogTalk.
No, they don't. They don't.
The average player does not know who any of us are. The average player does not watch any Twitch streams.
Based on my experience, the average player is still doing Duty Finder, Titania, Normal, and still wiping.
And then they'll get past A Realm Reborn, and they may go on Reddit and say they got past A Realm Reborn, right? That's part of it. But
the average player looks at people that hang out in Twitch channels and thinks, "Man, what a fucking tryhard!"
A bunch of losers.
You know, like,
this is boring. Why do I care about this guy raiding? I'd rather just raid myself. Oh, jeez. But yeah, no, I think if you're going and you're playing a game and everything else, I'm going to be honest, I'm still paying monthly for WoW Classic right now. And I haven't logged in so long.
Why?
Because my friends are there and I might want to log in at some point. But I know I could always renew my subscription.
See, Frosty, people like you are the reason why Blizzard thinks they can keep doing what they're doing.
It's
and
true.
People will just keep.
That's true.
Because you fucking do, don't you?
Hey, man. Hey, I didn't come here to be shamed, dude. But let's talk about this a little bit more too, though. I mean, we talk about having a subscription to Final Fantasy 14, if you cancel your subscription and you have a house, you kind of don't have that house anymore, right?
Yep.
So that is one thing that is a thread of, hey, I have a subscription and I can't cancel it unless if I don't want to have a house in that game.
How long can you go without being subscribed before you lose your
days?
house?
Was it 45 days? Somewhere around there.
So you can skip like a month.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 month. I don't know. With an inactive subscription, you can still own a house. Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess
45
45 a month
so
and a half.
A month. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's not too bad.
So feasibly, you can pay for every patch. And like within those patch windows, like outside of those patch windows, you should probably be all right.
Okay. If you're legitimately not enjoying anything and don't want to do anything besides own that house and be a part of whatever happens in a patch when it comes out initially.
Yeah, you're probably fine.
Okay. All right. So not as bad as I thought it was. That was an argument a lot of people were giving to me. And by the way, there are some comments. Yeah, I'm constantly trolling, so don't worry about things I say. I also, this is a fun thing that happens on podcasts, and this is just another little side topic tangent that, we like to derail the conversation every single time. But I also play devil's advocate as much as I can because I want the conversation not to be just the right opinions. I want the bad opinions to be explored as well. And so I will devil's advocate, and I maybe don't present that as well as I should. So I'll say some stuff that sounds stupid, but don't preface every single stupid question I have with, "Oh, this is just a this is something I'm saying because I feel like we should talk about it." Not I don't know how to say it. I don't know. Not recognized as devil advocate wording, I guess. I'm stupid. All right, let's go on to the next thing here. Should we? There's one other thing about MMO subscriptions I kind of want to talk about. Is there, let's say you play a game and you have 2 hours and it is the most fun you've ever had in your life. You spent $50, but those 2 hours were the most enjoyable 2 hours you've ever had in your life. Would that be another way to kind of quantify what we're paying for every month? So when a new patch comes out and we have like a lot of fun, it's like the best patch we've ever had, we actually feel confident about going forward and paying other months because we're like, man, that was so much fun. I'm just going to give money. I don't care.
It seems like a really like individual thing, right?
Yeah, like are we making like a normative or a descriptive argument? That's the thing. Are we saying that there are definitely people that do that and like all power to them, but should everyone feel the same way? Like $50 is completely different to two different people,
It's true. That's true.
Like I can feed myself for a week on $50. Like easy.
Just nothing but rice? Is that
50
rice and
Yeah,
beans?
man.
Rice and beans can keep you
Yeah.
going
Like
for a while.
beans, like tinned vegetables, and
Are you not a real streamer, Sfia? How are you eating real food? You have to eat just rice and beans and ramen noodles. That's what streamers do.
Right.
Come on.
Whereas, $50 for some people is just like, well, whatever,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like that's the funny thing about money. $50 is a lot to some people and not a lot to others. And people value their time differently. Like some people would be quite happy to pay $50 for an hour's entertainment, and others are like, you fucking kidding me? There's no way I can afford that.
Yeah.
So it's not something we can sort of like ascribe to people. We can't really say to people like, oh, well, you basically came when you played this game. You should be happy to pay $50 for it. It's like,
yeah.
No one can tell you that.
Well, I guess, now that I remember this happening a while back when I was raid leading and everything else, there's a guy in the group who said, yeah, I know patch is dropping next week, but my sub ends, and I don't know if I could really afford to pay for next month. And I was thinking, you can't pay your sub for next month? It just didn't make sense to me. I couldn't click because it was just such a small amount of money to me.
Such a privilege.
I guess I'm privileged enough to, that paying the $12 or $15 every single month wasn't that big of a deal to me. Because, it was like a couple of cups of coffee, to me. But I guess there are people who played a game who have to kind of budget it every single month. Can I pay for that subscription? And that part, if you're paying for that budget there, you need to probably have your sub on auto cancel. Absolutely. And every subscription. Good.
Yeah. One other thing that just sort of touching what Ethys was saying about the the $50 for 2 hours of fun.
Sfia knows what I'm talking about.
There's a justification in one sense where, depending on how much development time and resources went into it, that $50 could be justified. Obviously, then you're kind of changing where the expectations are for buyers. But as long as it's communicated and they're saying, we've spent fucking the last 7 years making this 1 2-hour game, here, buy it for $50, then you might be like, okay, maybe it's good. But as long as you know that going in, then sure. I think it's okay.
Okay.
Well, it always comes back to the transparency, isn't it? And the fact that the publisher is making sure that the consumer is as informed as they can be as to what the product actually entails, right?
Mm-hmm.
Provided they've met that expectation, then it's all in the consumer's hands, isn't it?
Yeah, and I feel like Square has done a pretty good job with that outside of like Diadem, maybe. Previous versions. We don't know what the new version is.
We knew that Diadem was an investment.
Yeah.
There have been so many pieces of content. I mean, okay, I guess this is like whether you're going to be optimistic or less so about certain pieces of content. But for me, whenever there's a piece of content that doesn't quite like meet our hopes, our expectations, my attitude is always like, well, this is an experimental piece of content. They didn't nail it this time, but they're working towards something. Future implementations are going to be stronger. Mm-hmm. And that's like demonstrably been the case so far. Mm-hmm. Like Eureka was a little bit stronger. Mm-hmm. And future iterations of Eureka started getting more and more better. And I think most of us are feeling pretty confident about like whatever exploratory content they bring into Shadowbringers is going to be better still, right?
Mm-hmm. Put it this way.
Yeah.
They could never add anything new, and they could give us the same dungeons and just do them up a little bit, spend a little bit more time on the raids, or they could add a couple of things like Chocobo Racing, which get added and then fucking forgotten. But they'd also miss things that are added, which are really, really successful and well received, like Blue Mages now. So you have to weigh up like the risk reward benefit. And I think I don't want a game where I get exactly the same shit for 2 years straight. Right?
Sure.
You have to keep mixing it up.
Yeah, you want them to take risks and you want them to innovate.
And Blue Mage was a risk.
Yeah, so absolutely, but people should stop fucking complaining when one thing doesn't suit their needs.
Yeah, if something flops, it's okay. And Oryza, I am getting some shit from Q in chat about you not talking as much, and I just want to go ahead and give him some shit for not talking as much when I had him on the show. So, that's all right. That's fine. But I mean, to finish up this kind of the MMO subscription part of this conversation, we heard your feelings a little bit about raid logging and everything else, but I mean, are you happy with what you're receiving right now, Oryza, with your monthly subscription?
I want to be clear. Like, I did Eureka. I think I got every Animus relic. I got every single one. I like level all my jobs. I do actually a lot of things, but like nowadays I started raid logging recently because I just like felt like I ran out of things to do. Mm-hmm. So it's not like I only raid logged and I just only play one job or whatever. So, but like,
go ahead.
You're asking me like the value of my subscription.
If you're happy with it, like if you're happy.
Right. Yeah. So like I'd be happy. I feel like the game, the audience is very wide. Everybody has like different needs, and then like for me, my needs are like raiding fulfills a very like specific niche that I enjoy that combines a lot of things that like I can't find anywhere else. So like, would I like more raids every patch or whatever? Like, yes, of course I would, but like I also understand that the dev team has to make content for all the different people that enjoy all the different things, and I think one of the reasons why like other people in the hardcore raiding scene might complain about not having enough content is that I think you can find others, like all the other stuff, like you can find a good story, like good stories exist in other games, right? You can find like if you want like some roguelike stuff that like Palace of the Dead has or whatever, you can find that in other games. But like raiding, I think, is actually a very specific niche that doesn't exist in other games except like World of Warcraft or other games that literally have raiding. So like for us, it's like we don't really have a choice. Like this is like the best option. So that's why like all the complaints come out, I think.
Okay. Right now is also the worst time for people who only really focus on raiding, where Ultimate is now in your rearview mirror and you've got Savage coming up, but it's not quite here yet. So you're in this awful time where nothing's new to you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of burnt out on, But, I mean, that's just the nature of the patch cycles. If it came any faster, there would be people who couldn't keep up, and if it came any slower, then it would suck for everyone.
I think they've been doing a pretty good job of balance overall with it, to be honest with you. I mean, if I was going to think about the whole community and if they're providing enough for everyone who plays this game, I feel like they are. This, especially this expansion, all the content they put out really hasn't been bad. Right? I mean, the things that they've actively done, the new PvP map, a lot of people like the new Frontlines map that's out there. It kind of went towards what people wanted. I have my own personal opinions about Feast and everything else, but they haven't released anything really for it, so I can't really be too upset. But I mean, when we talk about Blue Mage, it was pretty good. We talk about Ultimate, it was pretty good. Savage was good. I mean, people want, harder content, but we understand what Savage is at this point if we have Ultimate as well. The story has been really good. Crafting, I think most people are happy with crafting, right?
Yeah, it got me back into crafting for the first time since A Realm Reborn, and I know it's done that for a lot of people, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I think Oryza makes a really good point though, that there's all these different kinds of content, but most of them are like a simulacrum of another kind of game. Like raiding is perhaps the one bit of content in 14 that is so unique to the genre, whereas like single player story RPGs, heaps of those. PvP content, like you can scratch that itch in other places for like MOBAs or whatever, and not like massively dissimilar. Crafting and stuff like that, there's plenty of games that sort of scratch that itch, but like raiding in the way that like tab target MMOs produce raid content is something that is not replicable in any other kind of game or any other kind of genre. So while a lot of people are spending time in waiting rooms between patches, those waiting rooms can be spent doing other stuff that's similar and that scratches the same itch. But for hardcore raiders, there's not really anything else, is there? I mean, is that wrong? Because I think that's a really, really good and really compelling point.
Yeah. No, actually, yeah. Now explained even that way, it's even more clear that I think, raiding is something that you can't really get out of other games. I mean, you can go to WoW or you can go to other MMOs like that, but you're not going to find it in usually any other place because that's unique. Destiny, I guess, would be the closest thing, right? In a way.
Yeah, sure. All right. Okay.
Okay. So I guess I just wanted to bring this up because I thought it was an interesting topic. And it wasn't really enough to do a whole show on, to be honest with you. So I wanted to have multiple topics for today. I wanted to talk about other things because I knew that talk about MMO subscriptions could only go on for so long. Besides, it just sounds like a bunch of whiny cunts, right? Yeah. Just shaking it. I'm being Australian for you, dude.
That's cultural appropriation, and I don't get it.
Sorry, right. Dude. I'm sorry.
You haven't been given your cunt card.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to ask you to hand that back over.
Sorry, dude. If it makes you feel any better, I'm just holding this penguin this entire time during the show, just kind of squeezing it out of general frustration. But
I don't see what. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. At this, I'm going to take this moment in between this segue to just say that you do look like a handsome teenager.
A handsome teenager?
Yeah.
Oh.
You do. It's a little bit weird because I look over there and I'm like, it's not really Ethys. All right? It's
Yeah. I actually have been trapped in stasis in a crystal for the last 12,000 years. Elidibus was just kind of like hoping that he'd be able to replace the real Ethys and no one really notice, and I could be sort of like just kind of placed in here to help bring about some kind of new calamity. But then I realized that like the old Ethys, he's got a pretty good gig here, and like fuck Elidibus, screw that guy. I think I'm just gonna keep streaming,
Nice.
Yeah, but that's it. That's it. I was actually made in a Allergan test tube or whatever. So.
Okay, I believe it. All right. So with that being said, let's go into meta jobs. And talking about this, and it's a little bit bigger of a conversation. Just saying, oh well, this is meta, and you should play meta, or oh this is meta, and you should this is the best thing. I mean, this conversation I wanted to be a little bit more on the perspective of how meta jobs really play out, and our kind of skews perspective of what the responsibility of playing meta jobs really are, because it affects not just the in-game rating community. People get shit on all the time for just playing the game casually.
It affects casuals way more. Are you kidding me? Casuals care way more about the meta than hardcore raiders.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, and so I wanted to just ask this general question here, going into meta jobs and everything else. How does following the meta, if we're going to say helps these groups that aren't doing speed kills or racing to get the first clear on these fights?
I can give you one example of when it helps.
Okay.
And that's when there's such imbalance in the game that certain jobs are so disproportionately stronger than other ones that it gives you an inherent advantage that would be, better than you being better at other jobs. Mm-hmm. So the only time I can ever really think of that being the case was Heaven's Ward, when the Bard Machinist, like just absolute like circle jerk comp was around. Mm-hmm. That was disproportionately balanced, right? That was too strong. So that would probably be the only time in the game's history that I can say that meta would actually help people not doing speed kills or progression.
Okay.
Because I think it helps people all the time.
Okay.
I think that the meta is an excuse for suboptimal players to not succeed. Every single casual group, when they are failing DPS checks, when they are failing mechanics, when they are not getting clears, they always have the ability to say, well, that guy is playing the wrong DPS. Our composition isn't meta. That's why we're failing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hardcore players, like world prog players, do not use and do not need meta compositions, because the compositions that they have and the jobs that they are playing, they're basically min-maxing, right? Can we agree with that?
People doing meta and following it, yeah.
Yeah, and at that point, meta composition doesn't really matter, because you're squeezing everything you can out of the compositions that you have. Players in tiers below do not have the ability to do that, so they need some kind of leg up, some kind of boost, and that's where the meta comes into play. The meta comes as an excuse because it enables players to not play optimally.
Okay, that's a take. That's definitely.
And people lean on it every day.
Yeah,
they do.
It's true. I could speak.
Raidlog and Oryza. I want your opinion.
Yeah, Raidlog and Oryza. Can you give us an opinion on that?
I agree with Ethys in that people use that as an excuse. I definitely agree with that. I do think like if we're not talking about like world racing and we're not talking about speed killing, it's still like your group is trying to clear as fast as that group can clear, right? Generally, I think that's what most people would think that they're doing. So I do think like maybe not meta per se, but I think like, I mean, if you're running like a comp that doesn't have all like the 1% buffs now, right? Or like one that doesn't have like I feel like if you like don't have like caster arrays and stuff like that, you're like somewhat hindering your group. And I think I don't think it's like so simple as to say that you should just like, because you can get good, that should be the thing you should do, if that makes sense. Because I think like, I mean, like my background's like, before I played Final Fantasy, before I raided, I just played a lot of Dota and stuff like that. And in Dota, like I always felt that you shouldn't like main one thing. You should be really flexible, and you should like, even like the worst players, like you could always say like there's something you should get better at. But there's also like you literally pick like this terrible hero for this composition. Like that's probably a reason why we lost. Like that's still like a valid complaint, I think.
Okay.
But like it's kind of a matter of degree, right? It doesn't go so far as to say like I don't think it makes sense to lock certain jobs out of like your party finder. Like that doesn't make sense to me.
It's pretty stupid to me.
Yeah, like I would say there's like validity in saying like I want to make sure I have one of all the DPS roles for like, the HP buff and all that stuff. Like 1% is kind of a lot, but yeah, it's just I guess what I'm saying is like I do think people should be more willing to switch jobs. That like people are just like very not willing to do that, and it always confuses me. But at the same time, I don't think people should be forcing people to switch jobs.
Hey man, I'm gonna let you know I was in the top 50 paladins for A12S.
How
Were
many-
there
So
50?
Were there even
paladins?
50?
Were there 50?
Yeah.
at least 60. But no. So one point that you brought up that I do want to discuss is that you were talking about Dota, I believe,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
when we're talking about competitive atmospheres, absolutely what job you make when you're trying to hit the cutting edge and everything else. But when you're going against a fight that is only based on mechanics and just doing enough DPS, it's a absolutely different scenario, I think.
I think, yeah, I'm not saying like you should just like cut. What's the lowest rate DPS right now? It's like Bard or something. It's like I'm not
Red
saying you
Mage,
shouldn't
maybe?
like have a Bard or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
But I guess my point is like you should just be willing to flex flex the things for the benefit of your team. And like even though Dota's PvP, like I feel like if you go from like a goal structure where it's like in Dota your goal is to win, and if you're rating, I would expect, maybe I'm wrong, but your goal is to clear as fast as you can, and like to do things like even if you're not racing, you still want to make the use of the time you have. So it's like you want to. To me, it makes more sense to do whatever you think is most beneficial for your group. And if you think like that playing this other job is more beneficial than your current job, then I think you should switch. Like I guess I'm not talking about party fighting. I'm talking about like statics.
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable, but people jump on that first because that's the easiest excuse. Because it's much easier to say, well, we need to change our composition than face the reality of their like fundamental things about your play style that you need to improve. And it doesn't work. Like there are so many instances where you force that bard to change to a different job that they're not going to play as well. They're going to do less DPS. Like the meta is the players playing whatever they're best at within the role.
Right. So people's definition of what meta is, people just think that it stands for a god comp or something like that. When my understanding of what it's always been is literally an acronym for most efficient tactics available, right? Which is always going to be situational. It's going to be the best jobs for the people involved for the fight. So it's not as if you say, we bring these 8 jobs everywhere, every single time. That's it. You have to look more collectively at what you're trying to achieve and then bring based on what you already have.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I definitely didn't do that back in Heaven's Horde. But the thing is, I don't know. I feel when you were talking about clearing kind of the most efficiently with your time and everything else, to me, it wasn't, when I was raid lead and everything else, it wasn't always the most efficient way. It was just logging in and spending time with friends to clear a fight. It wasn't to clear it as fast as possible. It was to clear it within a goal of mine of saying, hey, before the next piece of content comes out, or before, the next part where we're like, oh, well, it's been nerfed down so much that it doesn't feel pleasurable to kill it anymore. It was always just log in. We play these roles that we want to play. I love the fact that Paladin has a shield, and it's the only job in the entire game that has a shield. And I want to play it, so we play it, and it doesn't do well against magic.
That's a very wholesome, optimistic way to look at raiding.
Sure.
I promise you that even in those groups that are like, oh, we just want to, spend the hours and have fun or whatever. If you're not progressing, if you're not clearing fights, there is an enraged timer on that group where it will start to fall apart, where people will get infuriated and they'll walk.
Yeah.
So I think that it's not necessarily about clearing as quickly as possible, but it is definitely about clearing in a certain time frame. And that time frame is different for like every player in the group generally, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, some people, they don't care at all, and they log in and they're like, oh, I'm pressing buttons. This is the best, most fun time I've ever had in my life. And the other person's like, man, I'm pushing my DPS and trying as hard as I can to clear this, and this guy's just jacking off over here. And so, they're thinking, hey, these expectations of these players don't really match up, and so that's also another issue in itself, right? It's just these people maybe shouldn't even be in a group together with each other.
Now the interesting thing there is that if you're in a group like that has like mixed expectations, realigning like the composition of that group more towards the meta to push out maybe like an extra, 1 or 2% DPS will help expedite that clear. But you'll be doing it rather than the alternate solution of like, replacing the player is not pulling their weight, right?
Yep.
Like there are so many ways that you can squeeze more efficiency, better time, better DPS, better prog out of a group. And the meta composition is only one of those.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the easiest one to identify and the easiest one to make excuses for. And it's the one that you can like mathematically sort of map out. But more often than not, again, it's an excuse that people use for other problems.
Well, I mean, we could always talk about the situation which happened personally in my group, but I'm sure lots of other groups, is Stormblood comes out and your melee doesn't want to play Dragoon anymore and you have a Bard in your group. And, he's running playing Samurai and your Bard's just like, I don't fucking want to play the game anymore because I'm not playing with a Dragoon, so I don't have increased damage. What's the point of even playing Bard anymore? And that was rough. I had to deal with that for almost an entire expansion. And that goes into the whole raid leading and everything else. And man, I never want to raid lead again in my life.
Yeah, me too.
It was the worst thing I've ever done. So, all right, that was maybe a little too drastic. It wasn't the worst thing I ever did. I had a lot of pleasure out of it. It was a lot of fun to kind of work with a group and kind of get everybody together and get it clear. And it felt good and rewarding at that point. But man, it was painful at times for sure. But going back to kind of like meta and everything else with these jobs and how these kind of party finder groups and casual groups and everyone else kind of treats it, really when you go into any kind of clear and attempt, has there ever been, especially, I guess now is definitely a very easy to clear DPS point. Like you don't get hit by enrage, you get hit by people not doing mechanics, right? You can kind of just press buttons in a semi-optimal way and have enough DPS to clear fights, right?
Yeah, there hasn't been a real DPS check for years now.
Except for Ultimate, right? Well, Ultimate really didn't have that against the people who, I guess so. Okay.
These are not the right guys to ask about. All right.
Yeah. Me and you at this, but Oryza, or Ori and Sfia, both having horrible names to pronounce.
I would agree there hasn't been a proper DPS check in Savage since Living Liquid.
Correct.
Yeah. It's most of the player base isn't doing Ultimate; they're watching Ultimate, right?
Yeah,
that would be true. And so we really have to tune these kind of situations with meta and the conversation towards Savage overall, because in Ultimate, meta kind of matters, I would think, because that's a lot of time, right? Hundreds of hours.
Depends to the extent.
Okay.
Like maybe I think like you can clear Ultimate with like any tank, any
Of
healers.
course.
Yeah, like I don't know. I actually do think for Ultimate, like it I don't know. For some reason, feel like for Ultimate, where you're in a situation where like you presumably have 8 players who are good that you like chose to go in with, it's like not that big of a deal. But as long as you have like a caster that can raise, that's mostly what you want.
Yeah, good old
for prog, yeah.
Yeah, for prog, yeah.
I mean, and that's really when you talk about Ultimate. Most of the people doing Ultimate, it's kind of prog. It's trying to stay alive and clear the fight. And after you're done with it, only the people who are really dedicated to doing speed kills go back and do it. Are people streaming and wanting to kind of just do it? It's always Ultimate's the one where you clear. It's not how well we can perform
and then walk away.
Yeah. That's always how I felt it was.
Rope learning.
I mean, there are people out there who do the speed ladder and everything else for it, but not nearly as prevalent, I think, with Ultimate as it is with Savage. So when we talk about prog meta, it's a completely different meta than DPS meta.
Yes, absolutely.
And people get that confused all the time.
Yes.
Jesus.
For sure.
I can't tell you how many people shit on certain jobs going into prog because they're like, oh, why would you play that? That's less DPS. You're probably not going to get past the enrage checks. And then you think, and the people who are a little bit more in line with what's going on, they're like, oh, well, what DPS check? We just need to do the check where we stay alive.
We need to see the enrage first. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess the other part here that I want to talk about is, so if you're going in and we're doing let's say go to Party Finder and I play Bard. Do I have any reason to feel bad about joining a Party Finder group as Bard?
No.
No?
Are
Okay.
you shit at Bard?
Yes.
That's the question. Yeah, good one.
Yeah, it's level 50 right now. So in that scenario, it wouldn't really even work out. But and I feel like that is a problem that people have to deal with, right? Is that they kind of feel a little bit bullied out of playing the job they want to play, and even going into Party Finder now, and people counting out saying, "Hey, I don't want a Bard, or I don't want this healer, or I don't want this tank in here," and they just say, "No, we're not going to do it," which also I think goes into the correlation of how some strategies are done, and they say, well, this tank can't do it the way that the healers are used to healing, so we don't want to learn new strategy. We don't want this new tank.
Adjust.
Yeah.
Isn't that a function of Party Finder players only being able to know one strategy ever for some reason?
Oh my God! What happened to your mic?
Mine?
Yeah, your mic just like went crazy. Oh, you know
Really?
what? I didn't tell you this before the show. I forgot all about it. Zoom has an auto adjust on it.
Oh.
Let me help you out. We'll go through this. A couple seconds here to fix that for everybody. If you go to Zoom and there's an up arrow next to mute, and then there's
Okay.
audio settings, and then underneath your.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, now we're good.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have told you about that. I didn't notice it. Like it didn't happen until now. I don't know what that was about. But go ahead.
But yeah, my point was just like that. I feel like that tank thing is not about like meta or whatever. It's just about like Party Finder players are not able to know more than one strategy at a time. Like they learn one and they overwrite the other, and then it's just like that's the problem. And like if you're going a Party Finder, you're going with the expectation to clear. If those healers are in that group and you're under the expectation that the healer cannot learn another strategy, at the point it's like maybe it's better to just restrict what tanks we have because we actually want to clear this thing. So
yeah, it's true. It's true.
So something that I think you were talking about what is okay, should you feel bad for bringing certain jobs into Party Finder?
Mm-hmm.
I think a really big part of the stigma around a lot of jobs has been removed by something that a lot of people wouldn't have thought, which is the fact that FF Logs has changed its standard metric to RPS.
That's true. That is true.
People don't think about it, but they'll be like, oh, I never want a fucking samurai in my party, right? This is, go back 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
You never want a samurai in your party because they don't help your damage. But now they don't tax you. They make you look better because you give them more damage while getting nothing from them.
That's
so
true.
now people are like, yeah, sure, bring your samurais. 3 of them, I don't care. You're not going to be taking any DPS from me. So people are all like, yeah, good. We can bring anything we want. Machinists, fucking jump on in. Samurais, have fun. So now a lot of stigmas towards those jobs has changed simply because of that one very, very simple change.
So you're saying that like the acceptable party compositions in Party Finder are primarily based on people's pissing contests?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This
And
entire
that's
game is based around pissing contest with FF Logs. It's kind of morphed into that with raiding. I mean, we're not talking about the average player, I guess, because the average player probably doesn't even look at FF Logs, if you want to say that.
I think the average raider does.
Party Finder
Average raider.
does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the other thing about Party Finder rating and like wanting to be exclusive with your comps and stuff like that is that if you're not flexible, if you're not able to run in different positions or with different compositions, you shouldn't be in Party Finder because you're not a static. You're playing with different people all the time that are going to, behave in different ways, are going to do things slightly differently, are going to stand, slightly closer or slightly further away from you, are going to have you in insisting on being melee 1 or melee 2. Like, if you're not able to adjust and you're not flexible, then you should not be going the Party Finder route. And if you are going the Party Finder route, then you need to develop that skill of being flexible and being adjustable and being able to roll with whoever comes your way. Again, provided they're not a shit player, provided they can do mechanics, provided that they have the same standard where they're able to adjust and they're able to learn based on who you've got with you. So that's when it comes down to like all that matters is like, you got a bard coming in your party. Are you a shit bard? Can you do mechanics? That's all that matters.
Yeah, it's true. Because when it comes down to it, it's mechanics. It's all mechanics based.
Yeah, and you got a problem, go find a fucking static that will do things exactly the same way every time, and will pad your flogs or whatever.
But I have a 9 to 5 job. I can't find a static.
Then don't fucking raid. You know.
One more thing about Party Finder.
Sure.
And this is very relevant to meta. Stop locking double melee in 5.1.
Oh, yeah.
Stop locking double melee. It's not a fucking thing anymore. The meta for Party Finder is 2 tanks, preferably different. 2 healers, preferably different. You want 1 melee, 1 range DPS, 1 caster, and 1 any other DPS.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Stop blocking double melee. I play Black Mage. Let me in your fucking parties. Jesus.
Oh yeah, because I mean that's how see, honestly, this is something that Square's been doing though, right? They've been making it to where 2 ranged have a responsibility in a fight and 2 melee have a responsibility in a fight, and then lining up the mechanics was always based on that.
When was that last a thing? That hasn't been a thing.
There are ranged threshold mechanics, but you'll always have 2 ranged with the setup.
Yeah,
that's it. That's all you need, and you can just have
the
one
range
of your
play
range
melee.
stand in melee range.
Yep.
It's true. It's true.
Nothing is ever based on DPS role. It's always based on DPS location.
Yeah, that's true.
And they do mechanics.
Don't do 3 melee though. No, that's horrible.
You can.
You can.
It's in like very niche situations, but
I mean,
don't do it in Party Finder.
Yeah, definitely not.
Because people get really mad about not being able to hit the boss, and they don't want to be in those range spots. Yeah. So, yeah, no, that makes sense. Here's a quick question that came in. I figured we might as well ask. If you guys have questions, by the way, and we'll do a small giveaway too, just because I want to do a small giveaway for an item a little bit later. But if you guys have any questions, please fill out that little form there, because I can't parse through the chat well enough to get your questions, but I can go through a document and parse through the trolled questions to get your question. And so this talks a little bit about what we're talking about. It says basically, there's a meta game or a list of meta jobs and everything else. When you get into a party, how do you convince people that your contribution as being playing the worst job will be more beneficial than some guy that's a meta job and plays horribly? And I have a general answer of saying that there's nothing you can convince Party Finder of, and you just have to deal with their expectations. If you don't match them, then there's not much you can do. You can't convince people on the internet for certain things. But to answer that question otherwise, do you guys have a different answer than that?
I mean, if it's something you care about and something they care about, link them your flogs.
It's true. People respond to that pretty well, actually.
Be like, I'm a bard, but, it's purples and oranges and shit.
Purples and oranges, yeah. But then again, I was an orange paladin in Heavensward, dude. What are you talking about?
Yeah, no one cares.
It was so good.
I've never encountered a situation in a Party Finder where someone joins on a job that isn't preferable, and then the leader is like, I think we should kick him for a insert job here. Never in my entire time playing this game. So people who say these things, I'm not sure if they're just like
they're dealing with some sort of fake anxiety.
Yeah, like,
right?
maybe this
made
will
up
happen.
Anxiety.
Because it's never fucking happened. I've never seen it.
I haven't seen it since ARR. What I think is that when people are playing really shit and they get kicked from a party with no explanation, they find it easier to assume that they got kicked because of the job that they're playing rather than because they're not pulling their weight.
Yeah. By the way, quick side note, there's no raffle going on. I don't know why that thing's active right now. I am so sorry, everybody. I will turn that off.
Can I please get exclamation point rifle in the chat?
Come on.
Is it not actually a raffle?
No, I think I had it on from the previous one and I never turned it off. Let's see. I think I might have canceled it by now. Maybe we'll do it here in a little bit. Guys, I haven't done a MogTalk in like a month. It's been a bit. And that's just kind of, I'll explain why a little bit later when we're done with the conversation here. But yeah, no, I'm sorry if I'm a little bit rough here and I seem a little bit off. That's just my general exhaustion and rust from being away for a little while. But going back to say as many times as I can and not derail the conversation. when we're talking about meta, we're right now, should people start prepping for what the meta is going to be going into the next patch, or should we be pretty like just whatever, screw it, it doesn't matter, just play whatever you want to play?
It depends who you're asking, right? So like for my team,
Sure.
I'm like, I would like my team to be like explore the different jobs and just like see and try things out, just so like we're flexible and we don't, we don't know what the patch notes are going to be like. So we want to look at like explore options because we care about how well we do. But if you're just like mid-core stack, and I don't think it matters. Like it depends.
A majority of players, I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
I think the world race teams, sure it matters, but and
Unless
the people who
the patch notes come out with like Bard has been removed from the game, nothing fucking changes.
Bard is now a
Right.
limited job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, they would have to do something so drastic and out of character for it to really make a difference. So going to the next patch, just be as good a player as you can be. That's all the prep you need to do.
I mean, that's even with Ultimate too, to be honest, right? It's not like a exclusive Savage thing, unless if you're in a competitive team.
The way that they design these fights now is so they're killable with any non-jank comp, right? So as long as you're not bringing like the 4-monk Brotherhood, you'll be fine. Just bring a regular standard comp with one of each +1 DPS, any 2 different healers, any 2 different tanks. You can kill the fight.
Okay.
That's
I mean,
the meta.
Overall, especially within this expansion, the game's been balanced enough. I mean, should we talk about that too? What is our threshold for balance with meta and everything else? I mean, right now we're thinking like a difference of like 1 to 2% viability is like a good balance. Or are we talking about like it's just so noticeable? Like you go in there and you're like, oh, this is absolutely because I had a Bard.
Are you talking about raid DPS for 1%? Is that what you're saying?
Not rate DPS,
Like
but I mean just like as jobs being viable in a way. I mean, that's really what we need to, not Blizzard, sorry, Square Enix needs to pay attention to, right? Is if jobs are viable, and they've always been able to do that in some way.
Yeah. Almost always, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of imbalance right now, one job in particular, but
okay,
it's probably going to get nerfed. So I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Yeah,
Other
because
than that,
it always is.
Yeah.
like balancing's not like a static thing. It's a fluid kind of conversational. It's something that is always, being adjusted. It's very kind of push and pull. And people need to realize that. I think preparing for 5.2, what you need to be doing now as a casual player, if you want to raid, is find a static. And if you don't have a static or don't intend to have a static, then it probably is a good idea to be getting yourself to the point where you're confident where you can raid on like at least 2 different jobs, either in different roles or even within the same role, so that you can kind of like fill the gaps where you need to, either in picking up a static or in, Party Finder or whatever. Other than that, it's just about like, brushing off the rust a little bit, going and doing some Titan clears and, getting your head back in the game.
Yeah. This is actually a pretty good question that goes into everything. Because part of balancing and making things easier to balance is kind of streamlining some of the roles and kind of making it to where some things are pretty much just, it almost feels like you're not playing different jobs and so on. So the question was, speaking about balance and meta, do you think the tank streamlining was a good decision, or should tanks be a little bit more diverse?
I preferred it when they were diverse, but it created huge discrepancies at various times. I think it's more fun to have unique tools to play with in the game. Like, it always feels cool to feel like you've picked the right job for the situation, but then flip that and you feel like a paladin in A12S, right?
Do you know how good it felt going into Stormblood?
Yeah, exactly.
It felt pretty good.
Right? So
yeah,
it creates really diverse, well, not diverse, but really polarized like experiences for what people actually go through, and that's not really healthy. Because while some people are having the time of their lives, some people are just absolutely hating the game, and the fact that they picked a job that is now like gutter trash.
It's so hard to toe the line between balancing and homogenizing within a role, I think. Making them all feel equal, but distinct is really, really difficult, and something that all games, all competitive games, any games that's concerned with balancing, something they struggle with. And I think that 14 honestly does like a pretty damn good job with it.
Yeah.
For the most part, finding that balance. And again, it's something that is not like a static binary thing. It's something that they're constantly, working on with every new patch.
Mm-hmm.
I will say one thing I miss is like the role utilities that they kind of got rid of. Previously, like the range DPS role had like refresh, and I mean I used to be a range DPS main, right? So like refresh, palisade, I guess tactician, but TP doesn't exist anymore. I think like it's weird that they homogenize down, like dumbed everything down. I don't want to say it, I guess that's like bad nuance, but like I think like because balance, also the way they do the 1% buff, most of the balance is like within your role, even for DPS. Because like previously, like yeah, you're comparing 4 tanks against each other, but then it's like we're comparing 8 DPS against each other. That's like way harder. But now it's like, okay, now we only need to look at the 3 casters in a silo, the 4 melee in a silo, the 3 range DPS in a silo. And I think like in a related way, maybe it's not related, but like my theory is that like as they're like simplifying everything so that they can balance things with each other, they also got rid of all this like utility. But I think because things are siloed now, they can give the utility back on a per role basis, because it doesn't matter. Like you're not, except for that one extra DPS slot, you're not comparing Black Mage against like Bard, because you really have to have one of range, one caster. So like if you give Black Mage back mana shift, it doesn't like, if you give all the casters back mana shift, it doesn't really affect that, but it still brings a lot of flavor out of like the different roles. So I wish they would do that.
It's going to be kind of weird going forward, because as we add new jobs every single expansion, we're adding more to the pool of things that need to be balanced and work out. And so it might be more of, hey, you play tanks, they're basically all the same thing, just they have a little flavor to them and they have different colors to their attacks. And
I really hope we don't get to that point.
It's going to be rough. I don't know how.
It's trending that way for sure.
How many, like right now we have 17 jobs, right? Am I wrong? Am I an idiot?
Something like that.
6,
4, 3, 4,
3,
3.
Quick math.
Yeah, 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
18 blue mage.
Ran out of fingers.
Limit it. 17 and a half. Okay. So when we're talking about this, it's strange because the next expansion we expect to have 19.
Do we?
What else are they going to put in the game besides? All right, so a healer. Okay. Absolutely. If they don't put a healer in next expansion, we'll have no healers in the game left. Then we have, what's the other job they would add? We have enough melee. We have enough.
Probably a caster.
You think a caster?
Yeah.
Probably.
If they follow the trend, it's gone caster, and then it went the 3. So they got what was it? In Heaven's Ward, there was
Dark
Ninja
Knight?
came after that.
Yeah,
So it's
Ninja came
and
before
then-
Heaven's Ward.
So
Yeah.
it went caster, melee, and then there was all at the same time a range DPS, tank, and a healer. And then there was a
Caster melee.
tank. Oh, sorry, yeah, melee and caster. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's been tank and
Ranged.
Mm-hmm.
So probably a caster or a melee is next on the list.
Caster, I think it'll probably be. Well, yeah, that is kind of difficult. It could be caster or melee. So either one.
2 new jobs every expansion is not going to be sustainable to a point.
Yeah.
I
They're
think
going to
at
have
some
to
point,
slow that
yeah.
down.
They're just going to add a healer and that'll be it.
I won't be surprised.
No, they'll probably add more diversification within the jobs themselves.
A healer and a limited job.
Maybe.
No,
What I want
maybe.
to see is no jobs and specializations.
Okay. So like a DPS paladin.
Yeah.
Okay. That would be really interesting, but then we're creating 17 new jobs technically, right?
Yeah. But they're all the same one. Doesn't matter if you're not as strong. It means that when you're doing solo content,
Yeah.
you can do it more easily now in certain
true.
specs and things like that.
Yeah. Actually, right now, it's not too hard to do solo content as like a healer, is it?
No, it's just it's all
It's
flavor.
not hard to do
essentially.
solo content.
Yeah,
It's difficult in this game.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna start up a giveaway here, and then we can do some more questions. Again, if you guys have questions, feel free to send them in here, and I'll pick them up. But let's go ahead, and if I can get Mhoopot to do this right, what's a good keyword here that would make fun of me and be relevant to our topic? What is it? You guys, give me an idea.
One that would make fun of you? Oh, I don't know.
3.0 Paladin. How about that? 3.x Paladin. PLD. But that has a dot in it. I don't know.
HWPLD.
HWPLD. All right, let's do it. HWPLD.
That works.
All right, I'm going to create that. It's for a Mog Station item for up to $25, and I'll get with you after the show and everything else. If you guys want to enter, go ahead and start typing in HWPLD. I put it all lowercase. I don't know if it really matters. And I will enter that. And you guys, of course, on the show can enter as well because we don't rig stuff. No one's on the show has ever won before, so it doesn't matter. So go ahead and type that in. And awesome. So one other question we had here. This was actually a follow-up question to the tank question. Do you feel like when they add healers in, expecting healers in 6.0, that we're going to start seeing really homogenized healing going forward? Like, is it really just going to be straight healing? Like, everybody has shields and straight heals?
I don't think so, because they said they wanted to do that this expansion and then reneged on that. They went back on that decision because they realized how stale gameplay it created. Mm-hmm. So I don't think they're going to do that. I think that they'll probably keep the shield and direct healing like dichotomy they have at the moment, or else it will make not playing a DPS just insufferable.
It's true.
Yeah.
I would think so too. Ethys, thoughts on that?
I mean, it'll be difficult to introduce a new healer that feels different from all of the other ones that doesn't kind of fit somewhere into that dichotomy. Yeah, I mean, it's either going to feel like a Y mage or it's going to feel like a Scar.
I mean, should we do 2 shield healers and 2 straight healers, like pure healing?
I mean, that would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, if we have 4, might as well go down that route. And then we'll have, when it's 8.0, we'll have the next Astro that can kind of toggle between them all.
Oh, God. I don't think they necessarily need to homogenize the healers that we've got currently when they introduce a new one, but it will be really difficult to design a new one that feels distinct.
Mm-hmm. And this actually goes into a follow-up question here. Go ahead. We'll ask that afterwards.
Yeah, so what I think they'll actually do is add a shield healer and then just remove Nocturnal Stance from...
That would make sense.
Yeah, because Doctor's kind of rubbish right now.
Yeah.
Always been, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, that was its kind of thing, though, right? It was
so that you could play it if you had to. If you've got a white mage and Astro in the party, you can still get
desperate. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They would have to add something to lore to be like, oh, we've abandoned this. We're never gonna. I don't know. It would just be weird.
Lore should never be the decision for balancing.
Agree.
Okay.
It never has been.
Ethys would know. So we do have a follow-up question here, is if we did make healing any different with a new healer, how would we even be able to do it? I mean, do we even have any ideas for how healing could be different?
Doesn't WoW have a lot of different healers? I don't know a lot about WoW, but I know they have like different types, and I think like restricting ourselves to a regen shield dichotomy like might not be the best idea. I do think like it would worry me if Square Enix came out with like different healing archetypes, like balancing them, just because I feel like historically, the more variant it is, like the easier it is to, for it to be unbalanced. But I do think like if you look at other MMOs out there, there are a lot of other healer types, so we don't necessarily have to say like, yeah, we need 2 regen, 2 shield, anything like that.
Sure.
So they've actually
carry on. Well, the fight design is the problem.
Yeah.
And the fact that if you introduce a new kind of healing, then every fight going forward, and probably a lot of fights retroactively, it'd have to be adjusted. So the entire design philosophy of the battle content would have to be shifted, and that's a far more difficult thing than just making another job.
Mm-hmm.
They've talked in the past about how they really painted themselves into a corner with the way they made healers, and that they're just shield and direct healing. But as Ethys just said, the battle design quite often dictates everything we've talked about tonight, not just healing and the way that they can design healers in the future. The meta is all based on battle design. Like, if there was more damage going out and you needed to heal, maybe we'd bring 3 healers. All this sort of stuff is determined entirely by the way that they make these fights. So essentially, they could change absolutely nothing for all of the jobs, and we could have a completely different combat experience going forward.
Yeah,
and the meta would change.
That's true. I think they're kind of homogenizing the fight design too, in a way, right? I mean, in the way that you handle certain mechanics, it's relatively straightforward after you figure out the puzzle.
Yeah, we
right?
see a lot of recycled mechanics. I don't know how many like fresh new kinds of mechanics we've seen in Shadowbringers so far.
Can you think of any, Sfia?
I can think of a few.
Yeah.
Okay.
Final word is it's like sort of newish, like marching at or away from a specific person.
I mean, it's all reused mechanics just put in new ways.
Yeah, new ways. Yeah.
I think in terms of new mechanics, what is there? Not really much in T.
There's a square-based stuff in Titan, I think.
Yeah,
like...
most of the stuff comes from Savage. That's new and experimental.
Okay.
For sure.
All right, we'll go with that.
Line. Yeah.
line.
Line on Leviathan.
Yeah, putting in a ATV or a 4-wheeler in a fight. It's been pretty new.
I think Uplift is perhaps the closest we've gotten to like a new sort of mechanic.
Yeah.
And that was extremely refreshing to see.
I mean, just having an arena that's not a fucking circle.
Yeah. All right. Let me go ahead and do the giveaway real quick. Let me roll on this. If I don't like the person, of course, I'll re-roll. Let's see. Holy shit!
Roll it again.
Rigged.
Roll it again.
Unbelievable.
You want me to roll it again?
Yeah, roll again.
Okay, hold on.
But I just
holy shit again. All right, watch it. Not you, but...
Oh.
So someone that people are pretty familiar with right now.
Oh, yeah. Probably not a man more deserving in chat.
Okay. We'll keep that one. We'll give Grillian his up to $25 Mog station item. I'm sure he's spent way more than that supporting streamers. Yeah, so definitely. Congratulations, Grillian. And that's only because Ethys gave it up. That's the strangest thing. I was not expecting that at all. All right.
Said that nobody had ever wanted as a...
Yeah, I guess I needed to put my foot in my mouth, right? Okay. So
you can't do that on Twitch. You'll get in big trouble.
Yeah. Well, will you?
Yeah, you put your foot in your mouth. Yeah. They
don't
like
you're right. Thank you for keeping your cameras up. It means a lot to me.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
You're learning all kinds of things getting into the streaming world, Sfia. All right, so other questions. We can kind of get towards the end of the show here. It's been almost 2 hours, and I just really wanted to come back and have a conversation with people that I like and people that I should have had on the show at some point, and I feel bad about not bringing them on, so I brought them on now. Ori.
Just to reiterate, I was the third choice for people that you just want to hang out with and chat to. And
I feel bad because I'm going to be inviting you soon, dude. It's actually pretty, because we got lore conversation coming up soon.
Oh, right. 5.2.
Oh, right. Of course.
Big lore patch.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty big.
Oodles of content.
Because Savage is included with the lore now, so I mean, that's just a whole nother point of it. Or not Savage, but, the raid.
Yeah.
And so the main story, not just, a side story, it's main story to the game. And so we're going into, well, in my opinion, we'll probably have that conversation. I'm going to have to invite you on again. And maybe we'll get Anonymous on here again, and maybe we'll get Klimps back on because he showed interest in doing that. And that'd be pretty cool. But so I also try to pace it out because I feel bad asking the same people on over and over again, and I feel like this is kind of like a job, man. Every single week, just come on here and talk to Frosty.
I don't mind it at all.
All right,
forever about this game.
Yep, Sfia is now a co-host of the show, and he will be on every single show that we have.
I didn't mean it. I was just trying to be polite.
Yeah, thank you.
Never coming back.
But I guess we should talk about this a little bit, just to the player base. Right now, we're all kind of dealing with this lull. I mean, honestly, even if I had shows in the previous last few weeks, there wouldn't be much to talk about of interest almost, right? It's kind of slow. I mean, we could make up topics and conversations and everything else about Final Fantasy 14, but we have these lulls every once in a while where we're sitting for a month and we're like, please release something. I need something, because the stuff that we're interested in is already used up. So MogTalk is going to kind of slow down, not really just for that reason, but it's not going to be every single week, because I'm currently in a very intense schedule where I can't do it every single week anymore. At least for the next 6 months or so. So if you guys don't have MogTalk for a little while, I'm sorry. I just I'm out of time.
Busy boy.
Yeah. But after I'm done with school and everything else, especially get into when we get closer to FanFest, I expect to have a lot of little shows coming up, which we keep forgetting about is actually really not that far away, is it? It's like
That's
9 months, 10 months away at most.
We'll probably find more out about it on the live letter coming up.
Yep. We are having a show next week about the live letter.
Ooh.
I got that partly planned out. Larry's going to come on with me and we're going to have some conversations, and we'll see how that works out. Other bits of news here that maybe we should talk about. I'm trying to think. There was some other stuff to talk about. Oh, this is something I want to start doing with the shows too. If you comment on the YouTube video, you have to put in a certain phrase so I know you actually watch the show. And I will pay attention to it. So if you put in there, I watched the whole show at the beginning of your comment, I will know you watched the whole show probably. Otherwise, I think that you're just some asshole that heard something and you wanted to find something to complain about. So there you go for YouTube people.
What you should do is make people comment their in-game character name every time they say something on YouTube, right? That's what I want people to do when they comment on my shit, because there are some terrible opinions and I want to put names to.
You have to take responsibility for it.
Exactly.
That's smart. I like that.
Yeah. We'll see how that goes. And then at some point, I am going to start maybe even... we'll see a slowdown in MogTalk and maybe an increase in other activity, which we'll see possibly from a new thing where I'm going to be talking about more than Final Fantasy 14, because I feel like I want to talk about a lot more stuff than just Final Fantasy 14.
There's more stuff than Final Fantasy 14?
Yeah.
I don't believe you. I'll believe it when I see it.
Okay. But that's all to come in the future. And also, people might be curious about the world race. This is something that we should talk about as well. The world race is going to have some interesting stuff I'm not going to give too much details about it, but there's going to be some interesting stuff coming up with the world race that you guys should be paying attention to. And if you guys are planning to race and be very serious about it, go ahead and start contacting me now, because I have some things I would probably want to talk to you about. It's going to be interesting. I don't want to say more than that. I mean, some people on the show know about it, but I don't want to go into it too much until it's
nothing's solidified yet. So it's a bit too early to say.
So keep your eyes out for what's coming up. And I guess we're expecting the patch to drop the 18th. Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah.
Is there any reason why it wouldn't be like on the the 11th?
Oh, I have
the live letters
to the
too.
live letter.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's too close, you think, maybe? I mean, they've done stuff like that before, haven't they?
They've never done
delayed
the
it.
same.
Oh, okay. We'll see. Live letters happen on Thursday, guys. Watch that. I guess that's all the crazy stuff I want to talk about right now. So I do want to go ahead and go into final comments. If you guys are all okay with that, we're good. Yeah. All right. So while ending up the show here, any kind of final things that you'd like to say? And I'm going to go kind of clockwise. This includes shout outs. This includes where people can find you, or opinions that are lingering that I interrupted that you want to go ahead and get out now. And I'm going to start with Sfia and go clockwise.
Sorry, what are we doing? I just completely dissociated right then.
Yeah. Say your last bit here, and then kind of where people can find you and everything else.
Oh, right. Twitter, Twitter, I'm just twitch.tv/Sfia. Flip it. Twitch.tv/Sfia on Twitch. Twitter.com/FFSphere. You know what? I'm just going to put it in chat.
Yeah, put it in chat. Put it in chat. You have mod, right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, good. So you won't get...
Someone else can start now. I'm no good at words.
That's fine. So Ethys, last words and everything else that you want to say.
Thanks for having me. It was an interesting conversation with some pretty chill guests. So thank you everyone for hanging out with us today. It's kind of weird that it's 1:45 in the morning here, and normally I'm used to getting up like early in the morning for the show, but now that I'm living in Norway, it's like the complete flip side. So like same energy, but in a different direction. So thank you everyone. You can find me on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Ethys Asher, for lots of lore content. I've got a new piece coming out for fandom in a couple of days on Star Trek. On the question of whether or not when you use a transporter in Star Trek, do you die?
Absolutely.
And whether or not transporter phobia is a justified condition. So if you follow me on the social medias, then you'll be seeing some links to that. And if you want to give that a read and leave me some feedback, I'd really, really appreciate it.
Well, we're going to extend MogTalk, and we're just going to talk about that right now.
Fuck yeah, let's do it.
Oh, because I have opinions. I won't get it, but I have a lot of opinions on that. But
all right. Well, yeah, check that out then.
Okay.
And thank you again. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Wonderful to be on the show.
One thing that I was planning to do in my shout out.
Okay.
My team is still looking for one crafter, one singular crafter for world progression. So if you want to make a stack of guild, hit me up, or hit Sindelf up, or hit anyone up. Twitter, Twitch, my DMs are open, and I need a very powerful crafter.
Okay.
Thanks.
There you go. TPS, the world first, currently belt holding world first team looking for a crafter. So, Oryza, Ori, I can pronounce your name one day, I'm sure. I appreciate you coming on, man. I'll let you do your last bit here.
All right. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was really fun. I really enjoyed the design of this game, so talking about it's fun. I guess so. My Twitter, Twitch, YouTube are all Oryza Mercury. They're all the same. I actually have a YouTube video coming out probably in a few days about how the Enigma Codex is ass.
Nice.
So you can look forward to that. And then, my team will be streaming like same as Alexander. We'll be doing like long hours until we clear Savage and stuff. So we can look forward to that on my Twitch. And if you take a teleporter, you definitely die. That's definitely
100%.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. 100%.
All right. Your definition of death, I guess.
Now,
I mean,
that's
my definition is that my current self would not be able to exist anymore, and the other one that will have its mind and thinking won't be me, and I won't experience any of that because something else will.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to do this.
Well, you have to read it and find out because we do have some answers for you.
Okay. Some opinion answers, right?
No. I have some like lore, science, Star Trek answers.
Okay. All right. What do you think about Picard, by the way?
I haven't had a chance to
Me
watch
either.
it yet, but I'm so excited for it. Holy shit.
Okay. Oh, all right. I'll wrap it up here. We can just keep going for a while. I love hanging out with these guys. So starts into talking about nonsense. Guys, thank you all for watching. I know it's been a while. I know I'm, a little off maybe today than I am more days. Whatever. Yeah, there you go. Perfect example. But I appreciate you guys coming by and supporting the show and just being here. It means a lot. We will be doing another show next week, again, like I was talking about, and we will have other shows. They will not be probably every single Saturday, just because I am very busy with school and work, and I need to push this out and be done with it. And if I'm about 7 months from being completely done with it, and being able to be a little bit more free in the evenings, I hope. So you guys have a wonderful rest of your evening. I want to put special thanks out to Karar, my wife, for being my emotional support and taking me out to a restaurant after the show because my birthday's tomorrow. So yay, that's great.
Happy birthday.
Thanks, man.
Happy 21st.
Yeah.
It's already my birthday with Sfia, so it's good.
It would be.
Yeah.
50 minutes ago.
It's true. Yeah. No. Well, you're a little bit. What time is it over there, Sfia?
It's just about to go 1 p.m. So
1 p.m. Oh, so for Ethys, it was like 50 minutes ago.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Cool.
What I just said.
I thought you were talking about Sfia. I was like, not time.
No.
Okay. Anyways. So yeah, thank you to my wife for being awesome. Thank you very much to Blazana for the artwork I still use on the show. And thank you, Andre Kane, for letting me use the intro and closing music that I have on the show every single time we do it. And that being said, thank you all to all the viewers, all the mods, everyone else, and have a wonderful night. Bye, guys. Bye.
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 Wow, that was... Ori, do it again. Do a better one. That sucked.
What?
Say bye better.
Oh, bye.
Okay,
I was
whatever.
my hand wave.
Okay.